Progress.
Okay,
That's all we get is progress?
progress.
All right, cool. Well, we will call this meeting to order at 5:32 on March 2nd. Roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Member Dillon?
Here.
Member Castro is excused. Member Thompson's excused. Member Elliott is excused. Member Roseman is excused. Vice Chair Thomas, Member Thomas.
Present.
Vice Chair Walsh.
Here.
And Chair O'Donnell.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay. Report of the posting of the agenda.
The agenda was available for public access for this meeting at the City Hall exterior bulletin board on the west side of the council chamber and at the planning services counter by 6 p.m. on Wednesday, February 28th.
Thank you, Mr. Lyon. Acceptance of the agenda. The Architectural Review Committee will discuss the order of the agenda, may amend the order, note abstentions, request consent calendar items be removed from the consent calendar for discussion. It's a pretty straightforward agenda today, so can we have a motion on the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Public comments at this time has been set aside for members of the public to address the Architectural Review Committee on consent calendar and other agenda items and items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the committee. Although the Architectural Review Committee values your comments, pursuant to the Brown Act, it generally cannot take any action on items not listed on the posted agenda. Any speakers will have 3 minutes. Are there any folks wishing to address committee? Okay, seeing none. We've got the consent calendar. Item 1. The following routine matters may be acted upon by one motion. Individual items may be removed by the committee for separate discussion at this time. There are none, but we do have approval of the minutes.
The minutes are not here for this particular meeting.
The minutes are not here.
They will be at the next meeting.
Dog ate the homework kind of thing?
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right, we will approve the minutes at our next scheduled meeting. Excluded from the consent calendar, items removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion are considered at this time. Unfinished business, none. New business, item 3A, request by Sister City Investment, Inc. for a major architectural review approval to construct 8 detached single-family residents on a 2.53 acre undeveloped site located at 2700 East Alejo Road, Zone R1C, Section 12, case number AR 2025-0073. Staff report, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair O'Donnell. Good evening, the members of the Architecture Review Committee.
There we go.
So the application that's in front of you tonight is a major architecture review application which proposes the construction of 8 new single-family residences. The project site is located on the north side of East Alejo between Juanita Drive and the Commercial Road. And the applicant is proposing to construct a primary residence, a 2 or 3 car garage, and an accessory dwelling unit on each lot. The Planning Commission reviewed a major development permit application on January 2026, and the Planning Commission approved the application subject to conditions of approval. Now, before moving forward with this presentation, staff would like to inform the committee that accessory dwelling units that are proposed as a part of this project are excluded from this review based on the state law. Right. So the size of the 8 lots pretty much all consistent except the two that are located at the, on the north side of East Alejo Road. And these are lots number 4 and 8, and the size of these lots is slightly larger than the rest of it. But the applicant is proposing the primary residence that's identical in its size, which is 2,927 square feet. And each lot is designed with a 2 or 3 car garage. The size of the 2-car garage is 549 square feet, and the 3-car garage is 780 square feet. As well as the accessory dwelling units, which is excluded from this review, but the size of the ADU is 780 square feet. The project proposes a single story at the maximum height of 14.7 feet in height. So this is a site plan. As staff previously mentioned, the proposed design includes a main residence, a garage, and accessory dwelling unit. The garage will be facing the street, and the ADU will be located towards the front of the towards the street, and the main residence will be located in the back. The overall building shape is U, and it creates the open space in the middle. And the same design is proposed for all these 8 lots. Just to go over additional slides here. All right, and these are different lots. The one on the left is a corner, but again, the shape of the residence and the garage are all consistent. So you are reviewing this architecture review application today because it's a tract development which includes the construction of a model residential unit. And as staff previously mentioned, our Planning Commission reviewed the major development permit application for this project earlier this year, and the staff will be explaining some those comments in detail, but there are some comments that are provided at the Planning Commission meeting that relate to the architecture. And the third one is that ADUs are excluded from this review, as staff mentioned. And this is just a rendering of the corner lots number 4 and 8. And just to show the proposed design in the graphic form, the applicant is proposing the incorporation of rectangular form and a contemporary architecture for all units. And these are the elevations. Again, the proposed design shows horizontal profile, flat roof, and very simplistic contemporary design. The proposed elevation designs are all consistent for the 8 lots except for the front elevation. So this particular one's slides here is a lots 4 and 8 designed with a 3-car garage. And these are lots number 1, 3, 5, 7. Again, a similar architecture treatment is proposed for these lots as well. And additional slides for lots 1 and 5. And 3 and 7, again, the elevation treatment is the same for all units. The only difference is the front elevation. And these are lots number 2 and 6. They are designed with a 3-car garage. And again, the similar architecture treatment is proposed for these lots as well. The size of the primary residence is the same, and all these lots will be designed with a 2 or 3-car garage. And the corresponding roof plans. The applicant is proposing tiered roof design, flat roof. And the project proposes the maximum building height, the building height of 12 feet at the setback, and the building height exceeds and reaches 14.7 feet at its maximum. And the proposed slope, the building height follows the 4:12 slope ratio that's required in the zoning code. In January, the Planning Commission reviewed and approved the major development permit application for the project. And at the meeting, the Planning Commission directed the Architecture Review Committee to review the following. The first one is the use of accent colors. And also, the Planning Commission directed the ARC to evaluate the color selection and the color contrast for the framing across the garage and the entrance. And the alteration of the treatment of the framing or breeze block design, such as by incorporating a different pattern or vertical slats to provide a variety and to create more interesting street-facing elevations. So the image on the left is the, sorry, it's slow.
Can I go back?
No, I'm going to move forward actually. All right. So the image on the left is a color scheme that was originally proposed and reviewed by the Planning Commission. And after the Planning Commission review, the applicant has provided additional colors that are shown on the right side. All right. So these are the additional colors proposed in response to the Planning Commission comments. And applicant has provided these revised innovations and the color applications. Again, the site design consists of 2-car garage design, a 3-car garage design. And according to the applicant's team, the colors will not be repeated on the same street frontage, and each color scheme is associated with a specific breeze block design. The project includes a perimeter landscaping on all street frontages. This is just the example of a landscape treatment for the corner lot. The proposed plant materials include drought-tolerant desert planting materials that are recommended in the National Efficient Landscaping Ordinance. And the design includes the shade trees. And the size of the planting area depends on the design of residence. The 3-car garage design provides less planting design in the front. And this is just to show the 2-car design, which has a greater planting area compared to the previous design with a 3-car garage. But the similar landscaping treatment is proposed for all lots for consistency. All right. So in reviewing this application, the staff has found that the project is consistent with the intent of the general plan and the zoning code. Single-family residential development is permitted by right in this zone, and the project meets all applicable development standards as proposed. And the project generally meets the required architectural review criteria. To make sure that the implementation of the project meets the architectural review criteria, however, staff is recommending some conditions of approval. And these conditions include a conformance to the city's water efficient landscaping ordinance requirement, as well as the outdoor lighting standards. And then also the language pertains to the repetition of color schemes. The staff is recommending a condition which requires the same color scheme to be not repeated on the same street frontage as proposed. And then also the changes to the shared planting beds. The image right here shows the proposed landscape treatment for what's called a shared planting bed. As you can see here, 2 distinctive landscape design treatments are proposed, and the staff is recommending a modification to the design for these shared planting beds so that more cohesive appearance can be achieved. While the staff is recommending conditions of approval, the implementation of the recommended conditions will not alter the character or the nature of the proposed project. And the approval of the project will not create any potential significant environmental impact. There are multiple entitlements that are associated with this project, which has been reviewed and approved by the City Council. And as a part of the review, the City Council adopted the initial study and mitigating negative declaration already for this project as well. So there's a minor correction actually. So in the draft conditions of approval, it includes a condition number PLN 12, which reads any modification to the approved plan shall be reviewed and approved pursuant to the requirements of Palm Springs zoning code, section 94.04.01F, development permit modification. However, since this is an architectural review, the staff is recommending the architectural review committee to consider the modification to the language, which reads, any modification to the approved plans shall be reviewed and approved pursuant to the requirements of Palm Springs zoning code section 94.04.00G, which is an architectural review modification. It's just that it's referring to the different section of the zoning code. In conclusion, the staff recommends that the architectural review committee take the following actions. The first one is modify the language of condition PLN 12 as read by staff just now on the previous slide, and accept the previously adopted MND as an adequate environmental document for the proposed project and associated impacts, and approve the major application review application AR-2025-0073, subject to the conditions of approval, including the resolution. And this concludes the staff presentation. And staff and applicant are both available if you have any questions. Thank you.
All right. We'll start with questions of staff. Noriko, are there any material differences between the language that you just stated in the change from the development agreement?
Oh, no, it's just not a material requirement, but since the major development permit and architectural review focuses a different area of development, development permit language is more focusing on if you're going to be changing the number of density, pretty much the intensity or whatnot, then, it can be reviewed by the director or it has to go back to the planning commission. Whereas architectural review is, if you are proposing a minor changes, then the director can basically approve such a changes. In terms of the nature of the project, referencing to the correct section, which is architectural review, is not really going to impact the project itself. Even if the correction is not made, the project has to be, well, I should say, the project is subject to the requirements of zoning code, and the architectural review section is going to be referred to this project, because what we are reviewing tonight is architectural review application.
Okay. Any other questions of staff?
A question about the ADU. Is the ADU part of each house, or is it an option by the homeowner to add it?
I think it was initially optional, but I recall an applicant can confirm it too. Based on the development permit review, I think the applicant has decided to include ADUs in the development.
Okay.
Nick, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a clarification on Plan 15, the shared planting beds. Can you repeat what the request for change was again?
Oh, yeah, so it's a little,
Because it sounds like they were asking for more cohesion.
right, so I'm not sure if it shows clearly on the screen, but, no, actually, it's better to show that one. No, go back to the next slide. Yes, right. So the dotted line is a property line. But if you look at it, even though it's a shared planting bed, it's different, two distinctive designs proposed for the
Correct.
treatment. So if you look at it from the street frontage, it's kind of odd because you're going to be seeing one design and two design. But I guess what the staff is recommending is that the planting materials can be either rearranged or designed entirely in a way that when someone walks by, it's more cohesive.
Okay,
It's not
you're
very
asking for
clear
more
that
cohesion.
it belongs to lot number,
I got it.
3 or 5 or anything like that.
Got it, thank you.
Is that landscaped by the owner, or is that by the developer?
By the developer, yes.
But maintained by the owner.
Correct.
So mine's going to look pretty shabby after a couple months.
Well, all the properties are subject to property maintenance standards of the city, so.
And you've got plenty of staff to drive around and whip people into shape like me.
Just like we do now.
Well,
Noriko,
Yes.
I have a question. The history of the introduction of a more vivid color palette
Yes.
is what? the planning commission looked at it and said it needs more color, let
Oh,
ARC decide?
Turn it
So-
on. Turn it on, she said.
oh.
They make these recommendations, just turned it into complete catch.
So the, oh, okay, sorry. I'll just go back.
Says the woman in orange.
Right? It's not on my house, though.
Alright, so initially,
Yes.
the planning commission thought that the application of a Sherwin-Williams, the dark gray, the very dark gray on the right side on the top row,
Yes.
was a little too dark, creating this stark contrast. And if you can look
Yeah.
at the exhibit number 8, kind of shows this treatment
Yes.
of the particular, the framing that's proposed. They thought that the color contrast was too acute.
So they were looking to tone down that as opposed to the introduction of more color on the right side.
Correct, but then the planning commission also mentioned that they wanted to see the use of accent color.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
Rika, I've got one final question. One of the things that we see as a reviewing committee is a fairly detailed set of documents in the applicant's file. So as a practitioner, I don't want to be filing construction documents with my application because I don't know if going through this process and these bodies, if there's going to be changes. Can you take us through the history and how we're seeing complete architectural drawings with this application? Was there a history that they got over their skis, they've made progress without the consent of the department? Did they go at risk? How did they get as far as they did before coming to us? We're not seeing a schematic level, we're not seeing schematic level documents. We're seeing ready to be filed with building and safety documents.
I think the answer to the question is a little bit different. It's the zoning code that's driving these two to come in together. It isn't as though there was something that was filed prematurely. So the project involved the original tract map. So that went through its normal process with Planning Commission and City Council. The two sister application types that you would typically see on a commercial property or a hillside home would be the DP and the AR, right? The development permit and the architectural. So this, even though they're single-family homes, not on a hillside or a major thoroughfare, the code in 940401 and 940400 dictate that this kind of project, which is more than 3 lots, has to come before both the Planning Commission and the ARC relative to the development permit and the ARC scope. So it's really that we're bringing this to you because it's a bit of an idiosyncrasy in the zoning code on these application types. Otherwise, as a typical single-family home in a non-hillside part of the city, this would not normally come before you.
I think we've got a problem. I'm hearing what you're saying, but it's not the reality of what we see in the application. If I look at the documents, they look like construction documents that I could file to building and safety. So somehow, if we were to do a lot of changes tonight, these guys might not feel like they got the best advice from somebody, planning department, somebody, and they've got a whole set of construction documents that they're somehow filing with this application, which means they've spent a lot of time and a lot of money, and we're reviewing something that should be more conceptual. And if that's something that we need to take up at a higher level, you know, it's my opinion that we shouldn't be seeing this level of documents. And if they've gotten to that level of documents, something went wrong in the process.
Not necessarily. I understand what you're saying. The planning department and the zoning code requires a certain minimum set of drawings and documents for us to be able to analyze it and determine its conformance with the zoning code, and for each board and commission to evaluate it and make findings. If an applicant wishes to provide more detail, that's on the applicant. They have provided the minimum amount of drawings that are required by the city in order for us to process this through the planning department. If they've chosen to do more detail and provide more sheets and more data that would be more akin to what we would see at a building permit, that's on them.
Okay, understood.
And if I could just speak to that issue, it's interesting because the increase in specificity can help. A lot of times we see things that are not fleshed out. And it does two things, I think, from the applicant architectural end. It assures them of an effort at getting a point across a certain look, whatever it is. And from our evaluation standpoint, I personally would never complain about more detail. It's okay, and it's, I guess.
Unless you were on the hook to go back and change a lot of things that
Yeah,
had a
well,
lot of
yeah.
specificity,
Yeah, sure.
and you had to detune something.
Yeah.
So, all right.
What number visit is this?
I didn't hear you.
What number is this through the review
Hearing.
process?
Well, so there are multiple entitlements associated with this project. Initially, general plan amendment, change of zone, tract map, and the administrative minor modification. There are 4 applications that were reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission and the City Council. At the time, the developer, the different person or entity, but they were not sure what they're gonna do once the lots are subdivided. They were thinking about potentially selling to individuals or develop as a tract development. So for the reason, there was no architectural or development permit review at the time. But now that the project has been, I guess I should say, moved to a different developer, and they are proposing this tract development application, and they just went through the 1 round of development permit review process with the Planning Commission. And this is the architectural review portion of the same project.
So this is essentially number 2.
Right, exactly,
Got it.
yes.
Got it. That's helpful.
Yeah.
Would the development team like to come up and make a presentation?
I'm sorry?
Would the development team like to come up and make a presentation?
Like a verbal presentation?
You want the
Would you like to talk about your project?
I can't hear anything. Thank you.
Oh, no, that's fine.
What did you just ask?
Would you like to make a presentation?
Just talk about your project.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, please state your name and what your responsibility in the project is.
Sure. My name is Neil Curry. I own ID67, which is a design company, development company. And in this instance, we're working with Canadian developer, Sister Cities. It's the same family who developed Captor Court off of Vista Chino. We've just been working with them on this project. We purchased the land about 2 years ago now. And we've been going through a lot in the last 2 years to get it to this point. But we had a lot of things to consider with the UPS building at the end of the street, the airport, and doing our best to develop a project that would be sellable for the developer. And I've worked now here in the desert since 2008, and I've worked with most of the developers in town. I've in the real estate capacity. I work with Palm Springs Modern, GHA. I did a lot of development for them as well on the development side, as well as the real estate side. And our goal with this project was to develop a product that is limited right now in new construction, which is single level, single family. Everything right now is so high density. And we believe that there's a great market for this particular project. And we tried to be very conscientious of the design of the homes to mitigate as much as possible the air traffic noise, the UPS traffic on commercial. And so the concept of the front facades of the houses were kind of developed, and then with everything orientating towards the mountain, away from commercial and away from the airport as much as possible. So the feedback that from the colors came from the Planning Commission. We were happy to do that. We've done that. I've done that a lot on other projects. And we submitted the 4 colors, the kind of dark gray, and then the more historical colors with the rock gardens or in the offbeat colors. We were asked to kind of assign those colors to the houses, and I in previous developments that we've done, we've presented it to the ARC, and then as we started the developments, we started with the model homes. In this case, there's only one of them. We would choose a color, and then as we sell, those colors would be, I guess, first right of refusal by each buyer, and then each block would have the same colors in a different format, so that there's an interest there. But we were happy to add those colors to satisfy their requirements.
Anything else to add?
I'm sorry?
Anything else to add?
No, we actually did add the different breeze block. That was the other thing. We had just one type of breeze block, but they asked us to add different ones. The questions for the ADU that you asked, the ADUs actually we designed to flip, so the ADUs could be flipped towards the pool area to be either a next-gen suite, a home office, something like that. The sliders would be oriented to the pool area, and then we designed it to flip towards the street, and then there would just be clear-story windows on the back side facing the pool, and that would be more of an ADU unit utilizing a front patio, private patio that would be oriented away from the backyard.
And that's included in every one of the houses?
Yeah.
And why was that decision made?
Why?
Why was the decision made to reorient it from having been in the back to surround the pool and moving it more towards the front?
Just to allow different options for different buyers. If a buyer wanted to specifically have a home office and they wanted the ADU facing the pool area for their own enjoyment, they could.
Okay.
If a buyer actually wants to have the ADU for a rentable income property, they could choose to flip
So
it towards.
there is that flexibility with each unit?
Correct, yeah. And the ADUs do have their own entrance, so we just did it for palatability, for the sellability of the product, for whatever the buyers would like.
Thank you.
I had a question on the 3-car parking, which is not given its full credit in terms of impact on neighborhoods like that. And I was just curious, the ones that are, I couldn't figure out how you did it. Where did the space come from to get that 3rd car?
Can you pull up the site plan, the overall site plan?
Because the dimensions kind of look the same.
Yeah, there were 4 lots that were conducive to having a 3-car garage, and 4 that were not. So we originally were going to have that as a upgrade choice and build all of them spec to 2-car, but the planning and they didn't want to let us do that, so we fixed them, yeah. So we basically chose it based on the site. What would be
And so the sites that carry the 3rd car are larger?
They are.
Okay, all right,
Yes,
that's how that happened. Okay, well, I think it's gonna be a hit.
Are they large?
Any other questions of the applicant?
Yes. I'm curious about the decision to mirror the plans, alternating the plans as you march down the street, and the orientation of the private areas towards what I would consider to be southwest and west views. Is the decision to flip-flop the plan as moves down the street done for a reason?
Well, the two corner lots were flipped that way to take advantage of the larger lot. The two center lots, and then the lots 6 and let's see, I don't see the plan.
6 and
Lot
2.
6 and 1 are the smallest lots. So we wanted to try to orient.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Lots 6 and 1 are the smallest, or 1 and 5?
Lots 1 and 5, sorry,
Okay.
yeah, are the smaller lots. We actually there's a 12-foot easement there from the commercial property next door. That actually is the developer's land, but the adjoining commercial owner would not allow us to redo the driveway there, so we had to shrink the lots down.
So the decision to mirror image the houses as you're going down the street was made for what reason?
For aesthetics, and then also to take a view, to orient things to the mountain for the backyards. So basically for the pool areas, that they would all have mountain views.
Member Dylan, I've got some things we can talk about that. It's,
Okay. Yeah, look at my other questions here.
yeah. I've got a question on, Noriko, can we go to the roof plan?
Sure.
It looks like the way you're draining the roofs, these flat roofs, is just to let the water sheet flow over all the edges. Is that in fact what the intent is? So it's shown as sheet flowing over all the edges.
The reason that, well,
Can you introduce yourself, please?
my name is Carlos Sanchez, and I'm helping with the design. Based on your question is that we have to lower originally to keep the 12 feet maximum height, and we have to lower the roof a little bit just to continue with the diagonal for the 12 feet height. And we don't have any parapet on that area. The only area that we have parapet is on the windows area that we have the transom above the kitchen area.
Yeah.
That's the only area that we have that parapet to collect the water and drain outside.
Carlos, if I understand, your fascias are plaster, and your roof is sheet flowing over those roofs, and you'll have a drip edge on it, but that drip edge sometimes works, sometimes doesn't if it's wind blown rain. I'm concerned that what you're going to get is you're going to get stains on all of your fascias, particularly anything that's light colored. I don't know of an economical way to solve it. The fact that you're up at the maximum height already, there's a lot of ways to solve that.
Yeah, I know, I understand
So I've got concerns, so we can talk
that.
about that.
You prefer to redirect the water through the direct?
Well, I don't want to get into a long discussion about it, but yes, either redirect the water or use a metal fascia where it's something that's cleanable, right?
Okay.
Once stucco's stained, it's stained. The only thing you can do is
I
paint it.
understand what you say, that is stained there.
Yeah. Any other question for the applicants?
One other one, kind of piggybacking on that. The area that's on the left-hand side of the plan that's inset into the roof, is that a slatted section of roof inset into the framing of the roof?
That area is kind of a trellis.
This area right here.
Yeah, yeah,
Is that-
there is a trellis.
It's a sort of a cutout hole in the
Yeah,
the roof.
this is a trellis, the roof is stuck on both sides, and that is kind of a metal trellis.
Just a design feature?
Yeah, to provide some kind, because we have a slider that leads to outside on that area and cover a little bit
Little shaded?
shade. And it's kind of the same material that we have at the back. Metal on.
I have one more question, just philosophically. If you had your druthers, and I know you were appealing to the planning commission, how did you feel about the addition of those colors on the palette?
We did not want the additional colors. I thought it was simpler and cleaner to keep them with the neutral colors. And originally, we had used different, or proposed different stones.
To differentiate
stone
between the
veneers.
buildings?
But we were very quickly told that we had too much variety to choose from. So we narrowed it down to the one stone veneer, and then chose a nice the iron ore for the facades to just keep them very clean and Palm Springs. But we weren't opposed to using the color. We just basically.
Wasn't your first choice?
We were basically said that they wanted that to option. So, but our preference would be not to.
All right, thank you, guys. You can go have a seat. Are there any folks in the audience wishing to know? Any online that would like to comment on this project? Nobody online, nobody in the audience. All right, let's start with the committee discussions. Mr. Dillon, would you like to start?
Sure. I had, part of the reason I asked the question about the alternating plans on the site was because the way I looked at the site, the views were really to the west and southwest. So alternating the plans seemed like a move to create some visual interest where there wasn't any. So part of the challenge I have when looking at these, and we'll have a conversation about the colors, the sort of monotony of the color as you go up and down the street. The same color on every unit, the same accent color, the same sort of expression of the architecture across the street. You know, 4 units in a row, same color, same sort of detailing. It seemed to me that the flipping of the units wasn't a move to sort of create some visual interest where there may not have been any. So I had a little bit of a question about that because I don't think that the 2 units where the yard is facing north or open to the north are capturing the views as well as they could if they were to the south. I think that's true of all of them. I was looking at it. One of the things that I was thinking about is when you look at sort of classic Palm Springs development is when you have a single plan, part of what was interesting about it 60, 70 years ago was you could take it and rotate it on the site. And you could treat the roof line a little bit different, but you could treat the facade different. Even though the plan was identical in every single house down the street, they didn't look like they're identical as you go down the street. So that maneuver created some opportunity for visual interest that I think is lacking here. The plan is a little too deep to do that. You lose about 10 feet of your clearance on either side to really be able to pull that off. So I think that's maybe a missed opportunity. I do have a problem with the dark accents, the dark colors. I think it's sort of black and beige. And I would think that a variety or a series of palettes for each of those units might be more impactful than taking the same palette and putting an accent color on parts of the building. Same thing with the expression of the front door and the garage door. It's all the same. The dark windows, the dark door, the breeze block seems inconsistent to me, where you have solid and then you have breeze block. It seems kind of arbitrary. I also had a question about the clear story windows, which look like the distance from the underside of the high roof to the top of the low roof is about 18 inches. And then if the frame of the window is maybe a 2-inch frame or 1.5 inches, you're really down to a 13 or 15-inch window with a 2-foot overhang. So the view is up to the underside of the soffit. So I was questioning the value of that 13-foot ceiling with a little sliver of a window at the top of it. I didn't really understand what the point of that was, but I'm going on and on here. But I think the colors and the expression of the architecture is missing something here. That dark band where it starts and stops seems really arbitrary to me. I don't know what it's trying to accomplish. And the fact that it projects just slightly off the facade seems less of an architectural move than a place for paint to land. So I'll let somebody else talk.
Thank you. Member Thomas.
Well, I have to say, I'm in agreement with Member Dillon in particular, just about the ability to differentiate each unit a little bit more. I actually like the idea of the sophistication of whether it's black or whether it's tan or whatever it is. I like the idea that it's not kitschy, and we can debate whether or not it needs to be a different color. But I'm having a really hard time using the use of those vibrant colors as a means to differentiate between each of the units. Whether or not you can relocate them on the site, I mean, I think to the point somebody made earlier, maybe we may be too far down the road. But I just think that that's it's a very pedestrian solve for what could be a really great opportunity to do something different to distinguish between each of the units. So I don't know if that's breeze block material, I don't know if it's a different type of breeze block or color with the breeze block or where the breeze block is located in each unit, but I just think that's a very basic pedestrian solution, and I think the opportunity to do something really great, because I actually like the layout and the floor plans of these, and I just feel like that cheapens it. With all due respect to the planning department.
Member Walsh. I would start with, I mean, the plans are it looks very livable, very, pretty well addressing issues of privacy. And, it's a good potential layout to run with. The elevations, which I know we're supposed to focus on them, I always kind of had hopes and crossed my fingers that there's going to be some addressing of sun control on these things, consistent with trying to keep out south sun, west sun. And it looks to be a little hit and miss in terms of where it does appear. When I look at the roofs, the roof overhangs, tell me how that is framed, Carlos?
With TGIs?
TGIs, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, 12 inches,
Yeah.
14 inches, something.
14 inches, that's one of the
Okay.
recommendations.
Okay. Gee, it would look a lot more interesting if those eaves did something and spread further, like 42 inches.
If you see, we create kind of a cover over the patio
Carlos,
area,
you want
kind of
to,
a kind
come
of-
on up, come on up. I didn't mean to slip into a
No, that's
No, it's
okay.
debate.
We create kind of a cover.
Yeah.
Cantilever over the patio
Yeah,
and extend it like 8 feet. And it's kind of
Oh.
suspended
okay,
on that area.
all right, I'm
And the
seeing,
ceiling height is 14 feet high. You see that dotted line?
yes,
Yeah, it's hard to
okay.
see it in the
Well,
drawings,
I'm sort of seeing these,
Yeah,
unfortunately
because at the
small.
front, we have an element, if you go back to the previous, you don't really notice at all over there, but it's,
Sorry.
but that's on that 3D.
Okay,
We extended all the way to the front.
all right,
Yeah,
It's
so I
being
can see it.
contained.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
all
and it's
right.
contained in between the master bedroom and the other powder room that we have at the entrance.
And I would kind of wonder what your feeling would be about, if you're framing that in TJIs and they're 12 or 14 inches. I mean, when you get to that plate, can you drop that thickness
Yes.
and make
Uh-huh,
it
yeah,
thinner?
Yeah, actually, thinner?
Thinner.
Yeah.
Thinner is a good thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually, we follow one of the recommendations
Yes.
that they did on the previous revisions, and we reduce that height.
The
Uh-huh.
thickness of
Yeah,
the,
and I
overhead.
thought that based with the height, with the mass
Right.
of that element, that is kind of balanced.
okay, the next thing that catches my eye around that is sort of the lack of any overhang at these points where I get it, the look is one of blockiness, but there's a fine line between that meetsian elegance and this kind of brutalist
Yeah.
thing that does not have any shade. And so much could be done to add consistent, I mean, you sort of gather those windows up, and when you're able to get a shading device that's consistent, I think you have something going for it. The other thing, and it kind of makes me a little crazy, but it's like, it's when the sunshade sits, like 8 inches, 10 inches above the window head, it would be really nice if that sunshade came down on the bottom of the sunshade aligned with the top
Yeah,
of the
and actually the
fenestration.
orientation of
Or if the
them
fenestration is
are
taller.
north and south, and those are technically protected. And
Right, but what I'm talking about is this space, this extra exposed header here.
Yes.
And if we could lower with framing, I know how you're gonna have to do it, okay, the sunshades that do appear there, and we had more sunshades, that would be a good thing.
Or increase the fenestration.
You could do that too. But somehow get that so that there's more shade and shadow going on there. Okay. Yeah, I see the direction that you were kind of ushered in terms of the planning commission, and I can't really say I think it did it any favors. I think that the more monochromatic, look, you used the word sophisticated, and I think it did. That's it. I mean, there's a lot to work with here. I think that, and I realize there's this pressure, you got to get it done. And just some more study of it can really deliver a nice project.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's
I have faith.
Yeah, it's a good segue. Carlos, I think you can have a seat, thanks.
Okay.
That's a good segue. I'll try to be succinct. This is the kind of project that if the result of today's meeting is a restudy, you can go home thinking like you're actually improving the sellability of this project. I think what you're going to get out of this group is a huge dollar value for going back and restudying and doing a few things. I'm not sure that that's going to be the motion tonight, but it could be. And if the motion is to restudy these several things that we've mentioned tonight, I think it will turn into something that is valuable for you and your bottom line. I'd like to start at the site planning. And I think, Mr. Dillon, you started with some interesting ideas about streetscape and how do we get variety on the streetscape. I approach it slightly differently. And Enrico, can you pull up the overall site plan?
Oh, the overall? Okay.
Yeah. That one there. So my approach is, and this goes to how do we sell these things? And we sell these things by having the pool in sunshine during the winter when the majority of folks are here. And in order to get the pool in sunshine in the winter, all of these plans really want to be in the orientation of the two southernmost plans. They just all want to be facing with the pool, seeing that southern sun. Further, you've got a prevailing wind, just get on Google Earth and look at the aerial. The prevailing wind is down the runway. and down the runway is out of the northwest. And so by flipping these, you're protecting the pool from that prevailing wind. You've got two of these units, particularly the one that's butting up against the church and the one that's butting up against that office or industrial building that are facing their parking lot. I think it would improve just the livability of every one of these to have each of these with that yard facing to the south. And I think it would get rid of the problem of having these two landscapes so close to each other. In other words, you're going to get these bigger landscapes in each one of these yards that are offset from one another. As soon as you do that, then the next thing I want to encourage you to do, and it may become part of a motion, is it looked like there was a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction to the driveway. When it's a two-car garage, it's a 20-foot driveway. When it's a three-car garage, all of a sudden, it goes on steroids and it's a 30-foot wide driveway with presumably a 30-foot wide curb cut right next to a 20-foot wide curb cut. I would do all of your curb cuts at 20 feet, and then as soon as you get in, flare into that third car garage, giving you more landscaping, giving you less impervious paving to deal with and nuisance water that then collects when you have a lot of impervious area at the street. There's really no other place for it to go. You can't detain it because it's going to go into the street, right? If there's less of it and more pervious, say gravel, inert material, then that becomes less of an issue.
But at the end, sorry to interrupt you, but at the end, on the third car garage, we don't have too much room to maneuver in, to get in and get out on that portion. If I understand correctly. 20 feet.
You want to come up here? You want to come up? Yeah. Well, I'll invite you up. State your case.
Because at the time that we try to maneuver in to get in and back, that's gonna be too close on that area. I understand that probably we can provide 20 feet or match all the approaches for all the garages, but at the end, immediately 3 feet after, that's the only area that we can treat it with the different material, and that make different. Create a difference between the two-car garage and three-car garages on that houses. Other than that, we don't have too much difference.
Have you ever used a ride share? Have you ever called Uber and said, "Hey, come pick me up"? No. Okay. Many people do, and soon I've got clients that will argue that we won't have cars. We may have one car. It's this convertible thing that we keep in the garage. But we're gonna call somebody and they're gonna come pick us up, and there's not gonna be a driver in the car. And I don't want us to design our communities for a third car garage, which is, it's a nice feature to have, right? Just for the sole purpose of maneuvering, for a future that, is not really about cars.
Correct.
So I think the community would be better served by having less wide driveways, more landscaping, less heat island. There's a lot of reasons to do it. And if we look to the future, and these homes are sold to people in the future, there's a lot of good reasons to do that. All right, you can go have a seat. I'm going to continue to lecture. I think you have a problem with the roofs and the rolling of water off of those roofs and sheet flowing over a stucco fascia. That could be solved with a sheet metal fascia. It could be solved by having some small parapet system lowering your ceiling heights down and thereby lowering your roof heights down so that you can get a parapet. I'm in full agreement with Member Walsh. The thinner that roof is, the better it fits into the community, particularly when you have Alexander-type homes across the street that have 6-inch roof profiles.
but unfortunately with the
Yeah.
structural.
24 on center.
We don't have a landscape architect here today, unfortunately, to look at the plans, but did anybody take a look at those and have any comments or any suggestions?
I had a question about some of the use of the plants, but my first reaction to them was that they were really dense. There's a lot of planting in the front of these homes. I was wondering about, in one of the images, I was seeing, yeah, saguaro cactus, which that's nice to see.
Well, just changing the subject. Remember, Dylan, I thought part of what you were alluding to in varieties in our communities is a side approach garage versus a front approach garage.
Potentially. I think it
Yeah.
just depends on the
And
orientation.
I think we all applaud the idea that you guys are coming up with here, particularly the idea that the ADU could flip and flop depending on if it's a mother-in-law or whether it's a rental unit. I think those are smart, future-oriented thinking. It does create more of house on the street facade, whereas in the earlier developments in the city, one would take a variety of these garages and turn the garage, have more of a circular driveway, or have a driveway that came into a garage that wasn't facing the street. It becomes more challenging with an ADU, and I think the ADU idea in densifying our communities is more important than the side approach garage and getting more variety, because we're struggling with trying to get enough people, trying to get enough flexibility in our housing stock for that multi-generational housing that just seems to be part of all of our lives. So I think we can all applaud that. There are also shown in here the additional potential for the third car garage in all of these units. Is that correct? Like you could add that third car garage as an option to the ones that are just showing two car garages?
I don't think so now.
There's one, a couple lots has that.
Come on, back on up.
Carlos, you should just stay here.
Yeah, maybe we'll get you to
Yeah.
stay.
Okay.
Just a couple lots have that option because they have the space.
So there's 4 two-car garages, and you're saying 2 of those 4 would have the ability to become 3-car
Three-car
garages?
garage, correct. That's the only two. I think it's the 7 and 3.
Does that, from your aesthetic opinion, does that negatively impact the front elevation of this community?
No.
No.
No, because that's gonna be technically the same as the 3-car garages.
But there's more sameness.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, we've had a little round robin here. Anybody want to venture a motion?
I heard 3 key call-outs, and somebody can help me frame them up.
Okay, so I think you're going
Making a
to
motion.
propose a motion.
Okay, I'd like to propose a group motion, one of which is to
But
address.
is this a restudy? Is this approval with conditions? What is the motion?
Well, let's have a conversation about that.
Okay.
You think a restudy? You think a restudy?
We've only had one bite at this apple,
Okay.
and there are only 2 in.
Okay. Comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to propose a restudy with a few key items that we would like to have some further discussion and some consideration on. One is orientation of the pools, I think I heard.
Well, the units that
The
relate
units
to
in
the-
general,
Yeah.
and how, whether or not it's feasible to rotate them, to maximize the south and maybe potentially west, but primarily south views and sun for the pools.
So let me just clarify that. So what you're asking is that the homes, as you both were kind of implying, that they flip the ones that have the pools on the north side and have them all oriented toward the south.
Correct.
That's what I heard.
Got it, okay?
The other key consideration I heard was the location of the driveway and whether or not it's feasible to maybe move some of the driveways to the side so it's not street facing. And again, that's going to depend on, well, impact dependent on whether or not I guess it will be dependent on whether or not it impacts the ability to get in and out of the driveways currently. So I think we'll just have to see what that looks like. I'm not sure what the answer is. But
Probably
to
the
study
best
that.
way to do this is you get through your motion, we'll
Okay,
get a
well, we-
second, then we'll have further discussion.
So
We'll
location
refine
of the driveway, particularly the three-car driveways,
Okay.
the three-car garages.
Well, let me clarify that, just so I understand it.
Yeah.
You're saying relocation of a driveway, but that requires redesign of the units. You don't get to relocate the driveway without completely reorienting how that driveway is attached to that house.
And the only place that I could see that that would work would get the cars backing onto Alejo. So those two southernmost units the garages would move closest to Alejo. The ADUs would go behind it, and I think that's just unsafe. So,
And I think it also starts to get into the stuff where, again, we've talked about the site plan issue here, which has really been baked. So I understand the notion of flipping these so that they all have southern exposure pools. That makes sense to me.
wind protection
For
from
many different
the,
reasons, it makes sense to flip them, but I think that you're starting to really muck around with site planning issues that are really not within the ARC's purview.
so Jackie, maybe it's just the driveway width and how they get to the three-car garage. Curb cuts, driveway width. Ken, you look perplexed.
No, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Okay. The other key call-out, I think, were the water retention or the water flow coming off the roof and some type of a parapet or drainage system to help manage the flow of the water so it doesn't just come right over the flashing and onto the stucco.
Now, is the option here to whether you want to push this architect into creating a parapeted roof, or is the idea that the chair offered in which possibly changing these from stucco fascias to anodized metal fascias, would that be an alternative, one or the
Why
other?
don't you come sit over here with us, Ken? You're really good at this.
The fascias are currently, there's an edge metal over that stucco fascia currently, is that correct?
This is drip, though.
Yeah, it's just drip.
It's just a drip metal,
drip
okay.
Full metal fascias.
So full metal fascia is what you're asking to
Or
consider.
I can solve the roof, adding kind of a
Not
drain
without,
system.
not without mucking up the thickness.
Okay. No, that's gonna stay.
They will come up with a solution.
Solution.
We're gonna tell them
You're
what
just
the
gonna
problem is.
address the water flow issue coming over the face
Yeah.
of the stucco.
Because I have room with the trusses on the rest of the house, except on
Right,
the top.
you need to control the roof drainage.
Yeah, got it.
The one thing that Lance didn't call out, and I want to make sure I get Member Dillon's comments as well, but some way to also differentiate between each of the homes that's not just dependent on color. I feel like there's an opportunity, whether it's through the material, whether it's through the breeze block, whether it's through the rock that's on the house, but something other than just relying on the color.
Am I correct that this already has differentiating breeze block on each house? So you already have differentiating
varieties,
breeze
all I
block
saw.
on the front of these homes?
Yeah. I saw
One
two.
option I would offer is solid garage doors with paint versus
All the 8 houses?
no, a variety.
Okay.
Do what you're doing now, but make a
Some different-
variety of solid garage doors. Use that as an area that has a significant area for a color.
And then Member Walsh, you talked about the thickness of the,
Yes, of the
Overhangs.
overhang
Yes.
extension that we hopefully will see an extended overhang maintaining a thin dimension, as well as the addition of more consistent solar shading that one solar shade that becomes a projection can gather up 3, 4, 5 windows, because I see high windows in there. You understand.
You also had a call out about the space between the actual top of the fenestration and where the eyebrow was. So some way to kind of shrink that, whether it's lowering the shade structure or increasing the height of the fenestration, which I know can be expensive, but somehow to reduce that gap between the top of that slider and where the shade structure is.
Actually, based on your comments, at the time that I flipped the two lots that are facing north, the short side on the overhang, that's going to solve that comment.
Okay.
That's gonna be north
Because they're
side.
gonna have a
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
bit
yeah,
of issue with
I get
something.
it, yeah.
Yeah.
So can I again just clarify for this, for both the applicant and us? You're looking for them to extend certain eaves or overhangs?
Yes, where they are providing effective and necessary shade.
On which elevations?
I don't know, I'd have to go through the whole project, but
Primarily south, and when they're,
Yeah, well,
yeah, west.
two separate things, Ken. One is the overhang, plural, need to be extended and made as thin as possible. And, you know, we don't want to see an 18-inch overhang. The second is the shade device that's used over windows that repeats here. It's a little black line. Keep that as thin as possible. Make the relationship between the window head and the shade is the same, and more of them where they're going to be doing something.
More of the,
Shade devices, these attached shade devices.
The cantilevers, basically.
so when you look at the sections on page A 5.0,
5.0. Hang on.
We do have those in the presentation documents here. So we flip to the other elevations.
Ken, where do you want me to look?
A 5.0.
Yeah, it's too small.
Yes,
Oh,
perfect.
So it appears, and I just want to get your affirmation on this, that as we're looking at section F, the second one down from the top,
Yes,
where we have an extensive, it appears to be an extensive overhang over the large area of sliding glass doors.
it's right there.
oh,
Here.
Yes, is that adequate? That looks to be about a 5 or 6 foot eave projection. Is that what I'm seeing?
oh, I would be shocked if it was that deep.
Okay, but what I'm looking at in that elevation, and let me.
No, I think, remember Walsh, Carlos was, when he explained it, he was right, and Ken's right.
From here to here.
That does project out.
Oh, that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, well, because it looks supported at, see, this is what.
So,
I mean,
yeah, we don't have an issue with that.
Absent a
Yeah.
3D graphic, I can't see it.
So that's actually not an issue.
If there is ability to extend an eave such that it is providing meaningful shading, we should do
I'm
that.
fine with that.
And the other thing, and it's just kind of somebody mentioned it, but the vertical height difference between your low and your high roof leaves a challenging dimension, because that framed window at the clearest story is gonna be
Yeah, so remember Dylan's
teeny
comment.
Yeah, it's
tiny.
18 inches.
You did that, you talked about that.
Carlos here,
Yeah.
Yeah.
in this condition,
Yeah,
where you've
Us in
got,
that condition.
you've got your roof pushing up into
What-
that window height.
and what is your ceiling height on the lower?
14?
Four-
Uh-huh.
No, on the lower.
On the lower is
spaces.
10.
10, okay.
great.
That may give you reason to drive that ceiling height at your lower down, so that you get a differential between the underside of the higher roof and the top of the lower roof.
We would not want to go below 10 feet.
I
Yeah,
understand,
that's
but
the
with
other
the height
thing.
limit, you have to,
But we're tight on that side because based on the construction, we need to collect the load on a beam and on the other side,
Okay.
drop a little bit to meet the template.
You know what, you
that I-
guys, let's
that
finish
we
this
want.
motion so that we can, so we don't confuse the heck out of staff.
Those are the.
That's it.
points that
Okay,
I had.
I'll second.
Are you okay with it?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we got a motion, we got a second, further discussion. Is there anything we didn't add? Did we get enough discussion on the color? Is there enough direction?
There's several items here.
It's difficult.
Member Walsh, spit it out.
Well, I think I did, but to repeat myself, I don't think that the direction in terms of the planning commission toward more vivid, pigment-rich colors is delivering a better looking elevation. I think you had it right.
I agree. It's a little too expected.
So you're fine with the original proposal on color?
I am fine with the original proposal. Where that goes or whatever, I don't know.
One can see how it is heavy, but I think we're generally fine.
Okay. You got that?
Right, so the original color, as originally proposed.
Yeah. No accent colors, other than the dark charcoal gray. Is
Yeah,
that right?
yeah.
And when you look at the perspectives on sheets A9 and A9.1,
Here, I've got it here.
Enrico, can we pull those up?
A9 or A9.1. All right, as we look at, you just went past it, as we look at those, where, are you looking for these to be something that's more continuous? I know you want them lower to the head of the window, but what is it you're seeking here?
Yes, Ken, that's exactly right. The more continuous they are, they become much more of part of the architecture and not just something that looks added on.
So bring them down
not
and
just
make
an
it
eyebrow.
continuous.
Yes,
Make it a design feature
yes,
as well as.
and when I say collect up the windows underneath, it provides a unifying element so that these windows just don't look kind of popped onto it.
But
It's the
full
awning conversation
full
we had the other
discussion,
day.
if these are facing north,
Yeah,
the applicant should have the ability to just not put any.
correct,
Yeah.
correct. They need to
Yeah.
look logical.
Yeah.
Right.
But if they're east, south, or west, they should collect these together, bring them
Yeah.
down.
Okay, and so as your first part of this motion was to flip all of them so that the courtyards are facing south, these go away.
Could-
Or they're
yeah.
certainly not necessary,
Is that
I think is what
right?
we're
Right,
saying.
if they are not
They're not
necessary,
necessary.
they shouldn't
West
be.
and east,
Yeah.
those elevation.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
east, west, and south.
It's west, uh-huh.
Even when they flip?
Yeah, the other, the living area is the one that is protected, south and north.
Okay.
But that's the reason that we are that kind of awning, to protect that.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
So the flip it on the units that are facing north, correct?
They're gonna flip them so all the pools are facing south.
Mm-hmm,
The eyebrows over these side windows become continuous,
Maybe
and they get
lower.
dropped down just over the head of the window,
Or the fenestration can be raised. We'll leave that up to the applicant.
okay? And then the
Building.
depth of
Because my guess are those
But
are
you
8
did
foot
an
high.
8-foot and
Put
it's
this on
10
the
foot
ceilings, they
ceiling.
could put
thin
10
as
to.
possible. Carlos, are you also understanding this as well? So when they're talking about where they want these eaves and things extended, to also try to get the vertical height of the fascia as small as possible.
If you can get away with 12-inch TJIs versus 14.
Okay,
Versus
yeah.
that?
Yes.
Actually, counting, the roof.
Are those 8-foot windows sliders currently? 8 or 10? Do you
They're
know?
8 according to.
They're eight.
The ones are the living are, I think are 10.
The ones in the living, but the ones that are
That's-
back
No,
here?
all of them are 8.
All of them are 8? Okay.
Okay, I think we need a roll call vote, just
We
to,
want to make sure we've got this,
Okay.
I want to make sure she's got this down so it's clear. So we were flipping all the orientations so the pools are facing south. The areas where we've got groupings of fenestration like this, these are coming down to just over the head, and then these are becoming continuous. Got that, Noriko? Yes?
Yes,
On the drives, you're wanting to minimize the drives where possible at the 3 garage doors.
The curb cut
Right.
and then the flare to
Correct.
the three-car garage.
Okay. You want to take the colors back to what was in the original proposal without the accent colors, right?
I'm not opposed to an accent color, I'm not opposed to an accent color, I'm not opposed to some way to differentiate it with color, I just don't want it to be Atomic Ranch and kitschy. I think that's my,
You got to give us direction one way or the other. So if you're going to go with going back to the original paint colors, let's go there.
I would say keep the color palette much more sophisticated like the very first presentation.
Okay. And then you were also looking for some other type of elevational differentiation, either via, they already have different screen block.
Yes,
Solid garage doors, solid
doors
entry
on some of
doors.
yes.
Yep.
Okay? And that there was something you wanted to kind of have them look to articulate, like this front wall in some way that might give it more differentiation between the units?
Absolutely,
Maybe the
absolutely.
screen block portion gets to be a larger, smaller aperture? Is that the kind of stuff you want
Yes.
them?
Yeah.
Are you guys understanding that?
Yeah.
Are you okay with that?
We just want to make sure that if the ADU in this application, because we have the traffic and stuff, we don't want to open the walls.
You don't have to open it 100%.
There are.
You've got some screen block areas
You can
already?
turn them sideways.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Pull out every fifth
A little bit different? Is that okay?
Yeah, but one of the things that they mentioned is, since we're working with the same house, the same kind of look, the only area that we have to make kind of a change is the courtyard access, and as he mentioned, the garage door. We, on the color elevation that we did, kind of a standard, we offer 4 different alternatives to match what they want about the.
At the end of the day, you guys you're coming back to us. So give it your best shot and we'll help you one more time.
CMUs are a great way to differentiate it. I mean, it's something really simple without relying on,
Or if they wanted to, they could go to a shadow block.
They could go to a
Absolutely.
shuttle block, they could go to
Yeah, lots
metal
of
pickets.
flexibility.
Lots of flexibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are we okay with that? Have we captured them all?
Yes.
We have.
I think we have.
Do you have it?
All right, so these are the items.
I just want to make sure on this.
All right, so the no accent colors, meaning we're gonna go back to what
Right.
was originally proposed.
Right.
You got it? Okay. So in terms of the treatment of a rear elevation right here, you're looking for something that's more continuous, and the position of the shade structure to be lowered. Got
Yes,
All
ma'am.
right, cool. I'm just gonna check, mark everything. All right, and then you mentioned about the eaves to be thinner
Where possible.
Where possible.
where possible. All
Yes.
right.
He's chatting his inner Bill Cody.
And then the orientation of the lots which are designed with pool facing the north to be flipped.
Yep.
If possible.
If,
Yeah, to the
oh,
south.
if possible?
No, there's no if
No.
possible.
No.
Flip 'em.
Okay.
It's just like flip 'em.
All right.
Flip 'em.
And then the width of the driveway leading to a three-car garage to be more narrow
Yeah. At the curb cut.
at the curb cut.
Yes. And then flaring as they see necessary.
And then flaring as necessary.
Curb cut.
And then, I think the last item that I see here is, yes, the differentiating the elevation treatment and through different methods. One of them is to have a solid garage door.
Some of them have solid garage doors, right?
Mhm. And then you mentioned about the shadow blocks.
But they're gonna monkey around with different ways of making those block enclosures look different.
Okay,
Whether it's shadow block, different placement of this breeze block, or some other
so play with the basically the wall, I guess you'd say the
Right.
screen.
Right.
Roof
And roof
drainage,
drainage.
fascia durability.
Right. Exactly.
Roof
Either
drainage.
the roof drainage is either a small parapet or going to a metal
Metal fascia.
fascia.
Parapet or metal fascia. Did I miss anything?
May I ask for a point of clarification on this garage door business? Surely, whatever is selected, if there are 2 doors over 3 garage bays, those 2 doors would match, right?
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, I would think
Okay.
so.
Questioned and
Does that make
answered.
sense?
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
just because I could see.
No.
Do not,
That's
yeah.
why I'm trying
You're
so
trying to
hard.
be literal enough.
Be specific.
Have we got it now?
You
Are you guys
do.
okay with that?
Yes.
I think so.
You guys got it over there? You good?
Okay, roll call vote,
wait,
please.
There was a question.
The one question I had, if we flip all the houses so that everything faces south, then theoretically, then the privacy factor of the two lots on the end towards the commercial, that was one of the reasons why we orientated them, because that is a smaller lot. And we have that 12-foot buffer there, the easement, correct?
Easement, correct.
And that was, if I correct, wasn't that a suggestion of planning that we did that?
This is a different body, and we're looking at different things. We're looking at the wind, and we're looking at the sun, and every time a plane takes off down that runway and the sound is coming back into these courtyards, it's gonna be much more livable to flip all of these. So figure out how to flip it, okay?
All of them.
All of
Facing
them,
south.
all of them.
Okay, all right? Are you guys good with that? Okay,
All right,
Call
roll
the
call
question.
vote, please.
Boy,
Member Dillon,
Yes.
Member Thomas,
aye.
Vice Chair Walsh,
Yes.
Chair O'Donnell.
Yes. Carries unanimously.
To restudy with those changes outlined.
Okay,
All right.
thank you, work with staff, and we'll see you here as soon as possible.
At your earliest
I
convenience.
would like to make a comment, though.
Yeah.
I would like to applaud you both for creating something that's single-family and that's single-level, because we don't often see this come before us, and I love this. And I think you're gonna have an amazing product when you're finished. So thank you for doing this, and we're behind you 100%.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect, yeah.
That's great.
Okay,
Yeah, my career has mostly been here in Palm Springs. And after COVID, we went to Hawaii and then we came back and now I live in Las Vegas full time. And this concept is used a lot in Las Vegas. And it is a huge success there,
Yeah.
huge success. And it kind of opened my horizon just because I've only really lived and worked here for the last 16 years. And I really thought, well, this would be something really incredible to bring here.
Yeah, it's terrific.
And the livability of that, so.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
what else do we have?
It's nice to not see another Elon or.
4 stories tall.
See you. Yeah, thank you. All right, so you're gonna be
Every time we
restudying,
drive
coming
down,
back.
we can't
Linda, who moved the?
All right, thanks.
I know.
Architecture
And it's
Review
gonna be
Committee
there for
reports,
100 years.
requests, and comments.
Okay, thank you.
Any comments from any of you?
Any comments from any of us?
No.
All right, I'm just gonna second the earlier discussion about how much documentation we see. Member Walsh was of the opinion that the more the better. I don't disagree. But I would like staff in the report to say they voluntarily brought these additional exhibits forward. And it wasn't somebody asking them to deliver construction documents to us.
Well, I'm going to push back a little bit because precise grading is a requirement basic.
Precise grading is not my issue,
Okay, landscape plans are standard.
not my issue.
Okay, sections are standard.
Sections with detailed call-outs like they had on them were too developed.
Okay, but we don't make a distinction about how much goes into them.
So what, okay, I don't know how to define this, but for us, it needs to be heights and conceptual sections without TJI shown, without framing, without beams, without detail on them. They just need to be conceptual sections.
I hear what you're saying.
It doesn't sound like it's an
We
option
don't
with those zoning
regulate
codes,
that.
though.
We require site sections on the buildings. That's what you got. If they want to go to greater detail, that's their prerogative. But we at least need to have sections that show the structural system, that show the interior heights, that show where the conditions are at the parapets. We have that. They have color and materials, that's a basic. They have elevations, that is a basic. They have three-dimensional renderings, that's an option. But it's helped tonight because it helped clarify what they were presenting. We have individual floor plans and we have roof plans. Those are all basic. And we have a site plan in this case because it's a tract that shows the whole set of site individual lots. So I hear what you're saying, Lance. They've delivered the basic minimum. They have greater detail in what they've provided. But it is the basic minimum that they provided. They have not provided more drawings than what we've required. I want to help you, have you
So
kind of
there.
understand that. It's not like they've gone overboard. This is not a permit set by any means. It's a set of the normal materials and developments things that they submit on a major architectural.
Okay. I'm continuing to disagree. I don't, I hear what you're saying. I hear the fact that it is a minimum set and their elevations. I'm going to continue to say that they are more developed sections, elevations, roof plans than we need at this level. And if they were to have to make significant changes, they would feel like, unless they're told, they would feel like they wasted money.
Asked and answered.
May I say something?
Yep.
So the required materials for major architecture review are specified in the zoning code. So the applicant is required to provide those materials that are specified in the zoning code. And then also, the plans has to include sufficient details for staff to analyze against the architecture review criteria. So I just wanted to add that.
And I've done this long enough, when I see the kind of drawings that they filed, I bet in their file, back in their computer, is a full set of drawings. They just printed out what was required. So they've somehow gone into great detail on this set of plans. And if we were to have approved tonight, the likelihood that they could file tomorrow because they have everything already done, because it's consistent with what I'm seeing in the documents that were provided, that's where I have a problem. Somehow they did a lot of work that could have been costly for them.
I understand.
Okay.
Duly noted.
All right, Ken, I think you had something you wanted to share with us.
The only other thing I wanted to share is that Member Thompson, who has been a great asset and contributor here on the ARC, has opted to resign. So I received his resignation after our last meeting. He is, as you may know, retiring from his regular day job and going to be doing a lot of travel. He advised us of that. It was, I think, running into conflict for himself in terms of how does he keep that kind of freedom and still show up here every 2 weeks, basically. So I just want to let you know he has tendered his resignation. So the Planning Commission will be accepting his resignation. They will be taking Mr. Dillon and moving you from alternate to a standing member. You will fill out his term, and then the alternate positions will be posted.
So might I make a comment on that?
Yes?
I think that, just from my own personal experience, the city might want to reconsider the in-person attendance of all the commissioners, as opposed to allowing members to maybe use Zoom on a handful of occasions. And I know we've made a couple of exceptions, but it seems like it's out of the norm as opposed to some type of stated policy. Because I think anytime you have people that have talent, say Member Walsh is a good example, a talent that you definitely want on the Architectural Review Committee, and he has a second home somewhere, and he's going to be traveling all summer, and he's not going to be in attendance, and he's going to miss more than the required mandatory. I think that's a disservice to the city, to the committee, and to the applicants. So I would love for you guys to consider that, because very similar to Member Thompson, I'm probably at the end of June not going to re-up my turn for the exact same reason.
Understood.
It's burdensome for us. I'm enjoy being it, but not at the expense of my own personal enjoyment, unfortunately.
Understand that. There is a written policy that we have been following basically since post-COVID.
Yes.
And it was put in place by the city council for all boards and commissions. There are circumstances where a member of a board or commission may participate remotely, as you know.
Yes.
We have to know well enough in advance
Yes.
that we can post your position on the agenda.
Yes.
And that you have posted at your remote site.
Yes.
The notice that this meeting is being held, and some member of the public, should they wish to do so, in your vicinity of that remote location, may observe.
Yes.
Come join me.
I wanted to be in Costa Rica with you. I was going to jump on a plane.
So the short answer is we do have that
Yes,
policy.
yes.
And so there were a lot of changes that happened this past January at state level with the Brown Act.
Yes.
And so we've been struggling to understand where do we land as a city, because we've got this
You do.
stated policy that the council has adopted. And do we follow that, or do we follow this new thing that's come out by the state? And the city attorney, between a couple of our last times we've talked about this and today, reaffirmed to me, we are following the city council approved policy on remote participation. So I will get that out to all of you.
Yes.
I know, like in one of the recent meetings, there was a member who had a very immediate need to be absent. And that could be like an illness, for example. You could fall ill before we get or after we got the agenda out. In those cases, while we value everybody's talent and opinions on these things, you would simply become an excused absence under that circumstance. We've got to still follow this ability that if you know in advance, and it's maybe something that we can talk about for those of you that know you're going to be out of town for a while, how we manage this, right? Because we do value everybody's talent. That's why we have you here, and we appreciate that greatly. And when we do start to have losses, we freak out a little bit. Tonight, we were right at quorum.
Yeah.
And we cannot afford to have situations where we have everybody scheduled and are coming in from out of town,
And the
and
people
then we don't
absent.
have a quorum.
Sure. Yeah.
So
That would
that's
not be good. No,
We've
no,
done it once, and
no.
it was not good.
No.
So I will try to get more clarification for all of you on that.
People didn't show up.
Member Thomas, we'll try to get this information clear for you guys, because it's been some ambiguity for us.
Yeah.
Knowing what it is that we're trying to apply here, okay? But I appreciate that.
Mr. Lyons, did you have anything you want to share with us about purview between site planning and architecture?
Yes, only to the extent that, as you know, there is a group of criteria that are the findings for a development permit, and those lie with the Planning Commission. And then there's a group of criteria that are the required findings for ARC, and those are your purview. I need to be more diligent as your liaison. Basically, what I look at is, my job is to draw the circle within which you can make your decisions and give you as much latitude under the codes as I can. There are some instances where both bodies want to blur over into the other party's purview. On things related to site plan, that the site plan is being reviewed, the building overall massing, setbacks, and things like that are determined by the Planning Commission. That's their purview. Yours to modify site plan is basically not. Now, in this case, you're taking a site plan and flipping it on a lot. So I look at that as an inconsequential change. But when you started talking about wanting to move them around and do a different way of the garage door orienting, that starts to get into a level of site planning that I think is beyond what this committee's purview is. So I will try to guide you in as clear a manner as I can. When we dealt with the affordable housing a week or so ago, I did not guide you well in that. And because partly I did not understand what had taken place at a previous meeting, but the site plan was baked already when it came to you by the city council. So the discussion that occurred in moving the trash enclosure was one that we could not honor this board's condition. So in that particular instance, even though that was your direction to move that dumpster to someplace else on the site, that dumpster is going to stay in the location that you saw it, because that was the location that the planning commission and the city council determined was satisfactory. So while I appreciate that you guys were looking at that stuff, you were looking at odors, you were looking at the potential for unanticipated nuisances, that was something that I needed to guide you more clearly on, which I didn't. And so that's what I'm explaining to you tonight.
Yeah, just for the rest of you committee members, what Mr. Lyon and I talked about was when there's public testimony, and the public testimony feels like it is, please, committee, take action on our grievances, that he will do a better job of framing that in a way like a judge does. You guys are only looking at X, Y, and Z. So it's just going to help us, because I think we all want to solve issues, right? And we want to solve things to the best of our ability. It felt like an easy move, but unfortunately, it was already a done deal.
And it's, it's human nature also, when they realize, well, I'll make this up for a moment, but planning commission is going to look at this thing, HSPB is going to look at this thing, ARC is going to look at this thing, and if there's something that I have a grievance about as a member of the public, and I'm not getting traction, I'm going to keep coming back until, somebody seems to want to come along with me. And you've got to appreciate that the public is taking the time to come down to all these meetings and state their concerns. But again, at staff level, we've got to guide you, and we have to kind of guide the public at that moment to say, that one took place, that decision happened over here in this body, and the current body is not considering that anymore. And that's what I'm committed to doing a better job with you guys on.
And that's only fair for the applicant, quite honestly.
It truly is, it's
Yeah.
fair for the applicant. It's
Oh, I get
difficult
that.
for the member of the public who's
Yeah.
taken the time to come down. I understand that. And we don't want to discourage that either, because these processes are public for a reason, right?
Indeed.
Okay?
Anything further? All right, adjournment 7:13 on Monday. March 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you.
7:13.
So Lori, what brings you down to think about that? Because we started